guys? Spartan Cat, and in today's Battle Cats video, I will be ranking wave shield cats. So wave shields are immune to waves, and all units behind them do not get hit. So let's go right into it. The first one I'm going to review is the very well-known Octopus Cat, who, before true form, he's good against floating, I'll give him that, but when you get him his true form, he has increased stats, but most importantly, he's a wave blocker. And he's one of the best in the game at it because he's somewhat spammable. He's pretty cheap. He moves slowly, which could be good and bad. But in this case, that means he stays on the field longer, and he might not be able to rush right to the front. But if you can get a steady stream of them going, you'll be in pretty good hands. So I'm definitely going to put him in the A or S tier. Depends. If it's a 4-star stage, you can't use him, but other than that, he's one of the best, if not the best, cheap wave blockers in the game. Next is Cat Machine, who pre-true form, pretty low stats, but when you get his true form, he becomes a bit better, and his wave shield ability, he's pretty good against his niche. So I'm going to go into the stats. I couldn't find a tier list with all the units I wanted on it, so I'm just going to do this for now. We'll see if I continue doing this. So I'm just going to use the fandom. But I kind of like the idea that I could scroll to the stats and stuff, so I could assess it better. You guys can see all the stats for yourselves. You can see here, true form, 459,000 health versus Red and Alien, which is alright for a tanker, but his wave shield ability, area attack, over 10,000 DPS. So when you combine all that, it's pretty good. Man, I really hate the ads though. But a quick glimpse of that. So not only does he have about 500,000 health, plus you could talent him, get him past level 30. So against those two traits, Berserk Quarry, the alien jumping pig with the shockwaves, Cat Machine could be a good solution to that. So I'm going to put Cat Machine in a B tier, just because you're not going to use him much outside of his niche, because he's a tanker for two traits. But against his niche, I'll give him an A. Let's get the Mighty Cat. So Mighty Cat weakens traitless, that's his niche. Not super stat loaded. He's pretty cheap though. If we look at his true form, 100% chance to weaken traitless enemies for 6.67 seconds. So that's 100% uptime if he stays alive. But unfortunately, he's a rusher, so he's not going to be on the field too long. We don't look at his DPS too much, 30,000 health. So, he might be able to survive a hit or two. He is a wave shield though. That's his important part. And as a wave shield, his weaken is a nice bonus with the wave shield. So we could do two things pretty effectively. You bring him in a stage against maybe Hermit Cat. That's one of his strong suits. You can get him. You can sneak him in, and then all of a sudden they're weakened down by half, and that's a big deal for 7 seconds almost. So you do something like that. You could put him in certain situations. I'm gonna put him in like a B plus, only because he's good against one trait. But so that's his generalist ranking, a B plus. But against traitless, I give him an A. He does pretty well. There's some stages he just doesn't do well in because of he gets, shot before, or he hits the wrong target and he's done because it's over a 5-second attack frequency. So with single target and short range, if he misses his target, he's pretty ineffective. But in a stage like 430 of Heavenly Tower, you could rush him right in. The Neco, I'm just going to place her in, like an F. No one's going to use her as a wave blocker. Maybe a D if you have nothing else, but I don't think I have to go into that too much. The Necos are pretty bad. And there aren't many metal enemies with shockwaves, unless if you're talking about the Cyberface or something, but using somebody like Cat NATO or Cheerleader Cat is a much better bet, in my opinion. So Neco gets outclassed 1,000%. Eva Unit 0, he's a pretty interesting unit, and I'm glad I could look at his stats here because some of them I don't remember off the exact top of my head. So not only does this I feel help the audience because they could see it themselves, but it also jogs my memory so I can do a better job of preaching. Alright, video, get out of here. Yeah, so very good against its own niche. One of the best against its own niche. Eva Angels. So with the ×5 damage and only the 1/5, when the rare event comes on, he'll be a beast through. And as a bonus, he's a wave shield and he's resistant to floating an angel. So he has a bit of range. So that makes it kind of awkward as a tanker to be middle range, but it's not bad. The resistant effect gives him almost 400,000 health against floating an angel. So against floating, I'd say that's pretty good. Angel enemies could rip you apart, but it's so good that he has it's so good he has those stats because once again, angel enemies could be ruthless. Floating enemies, you could hold them off quite a bit easier, in my opinion. But as a wave shield, he's pretty good because he's a tank, so that means he's gonna be on the field for a long time. And especially if there's a bunch of pigeons or whatever, I'm just trying to think of some enemies with these traits that have them. I know there's a few, but he's not a bad generalist. You can see as for a mid-range tank, 5,000 DPS isn't awful, but it's not a lot either. It's in the middle of the pack for a mid-range tank, but the health means he will be on the field for a long time. You get him up, if it's worth it to you, you can get him up and he'll be on the field. So against his niche, I'm gonna give him a B+ or an A-, only because there aren't a lot of floating and angel units with waves, and today I'm more of ranking units based on their niche of being a wave shield rather than their overall stats. I'm assessing how well they could shield waves. So against his niche, I'll give him a B+ only because of the lack of floating and angel enemies, but a good wave shield nonetheless. And as an Eva angel, he's obviously like an S tier, but not getting into that. Let's go with 3D printer over here. So, like most of the Iron Legion, he is an anti-zombie, and he's pretty good, if you guys didn't know. So with 400 range, it places him in a good spot against most zombie enemies. He has Omni Strikes, which is always great to have in zombie stages because of the burrowing. So that's good. Insane damage to zombie enemies. Resistant to zombie enemies. So obviously, off the bat, he's great against zombies. If there's a mix of shockwave and zombies, put him in because he's going to have a lot of health. He's going to be effective in that sense. And obviously, the thing we're looking at right now is wave shield. And I believe there are no zombies with a shockwave. If I'm wrong, comment down below, but I believe there are no zombies right now with a shockwave. So that part messes that up a little bit, but zombies also tend to be in a lot of stages, and some stages have units that produce shockwaves. So if it's a mixed stage and you bring them in, no harm done. Also 400 range for a zombie tanker. Obviously he destroys zombies too, but if you were to have to use him as a generalist, 6,400 DPS isn't awful for 400 range and 153,000 health. So I mean, if you had to bring him in a generalist setting, it's not the end of the world. I wouldn't recommend it, but if you had to, you had to. He's also a legend rare, so it makes it hard for him to be accessible. But I would say he would get an A tier if it's a mixed stage, but it's hard for me to rank him because there aren't many, if any, zombies that produce shockwaves. So in a mixed stage, I'll give him a good ranking, but I can't rank him outside of that. One of the newest elemental pixies, Yami. I don't know much about him or her. Or it, because it's an element. So yeah, off the bat, you can see it's probably the cheapest, if not one of them. But all right, so multi-hit. But once again, we're not trying to look at that. So we are looking at the wave shield right now. So resistant to alien and AKU enemies. So that's its niche. Alien and AKU. Once again, not a ton of alien and AKU units with shockwaves, but in a mixed stage, there's always going to be aliens, and the majority of stages, when you're in Stories of Legends, some Uncanny Legends it gets into, so there'll surely be some stages with mixed, and not a bad bet to add. With wave blockers, they're few and far between. They're very scarce in the game, so if you have any one of these and you need a wave blocker, most of them will be able to do the job, even if their trait isn't in it because of how rare the wave blocker trait is. So off the bat, that's a very useful asset. It's really hard for me to rank this because once again, not a ton of them, but the wave shield, I'm gonna give her a B, just because there are some aliens and the aliens get mixed in them a lot. So an A or B. It's really hard for me to rank them though when there are not a lot of wave creators in their designated trait. So I'll do one more. And one of the most infamous ones, Hasu Miku, the Double M 2020 Tokyo Tour Edition. Don't know a ton about it, but yeah, wave blocker. So the base stats are okay. Nothing stand out. Multi-hit never helps, but resistant to Red and Angel. So, maybe a good counter to a Berserk Hori or something. Once again, not a lot of Red or Angels that secrete waves, but nonetheless, a wave shield is always valuable. So, in the event that you fight a Berserk Hori, she'll probably be one of your first that you decide to put in the lineup, because she's resistant to them. She could take a few 100,000 damage, and that's not counting the waves, so she'll eat the waves up for her and the team, so that'll work. And Berserk Hori for beginner, intermediate players could be a pain. Same with normal Hori, but especially Berserk Hori. He has 1,000,000 health, and when you don't have the proper units, wave enemies could suck. But if you have almost any one of these, it will at least help you in some degree, because they're few and far between. They're better than just immune to wave units, because not only do they protect themselves, but they can protect up to another 49 units on the field. So if you have a wave blocker and you're going to a wave stage, make sure to use them, unless if they really don't match. So maybe if it's a zombie stage and they throw a Corian, a Berserk Corian, maybe don't put Mighty Cat in, but if he's all you got, he's all you got. So in summary, most wave blockers do their job because of how scarce they are in the game, and it's hard to really fail at being a wave blocker unless if the unit has very fast speed, very low health, or very low range. And in that case, they might be incapable of being a good wave blocker because they're always in the face of danger. But the middle range units, the middle range support units with resistance or multi-hit or whatever, they probably do their job because they don't get hit so much, and the multi-hit actually helps them because they could fend off, enemies by pushing them back and keeping them away from it. You kind of want to protect your wave blocker. So when a wave blocker has multi-hit, in my opinion, it helps it out because it constantly keeps them away from the protector. But those are just my ranks. If you guys agree or disagree, make sure to leave it down below in the comment section. And if you enjoyed the video or found it helpful, or both, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn notifications on so you never miss an upload. Spartan Cat signing off, and I'll see you guys in the next one.